The U.S. has evacuated Americans from the embassy in Kyiv, but there are reports hundreds of local staff members were left behind and are now at risk from Russian forces. One U.S. diplomat tells CBS News as many as 600 people were not given any guidance on what they should do in the weeks ahead of Russia's invasion. He also says staff was warned that if they left Kyiv, they wouldn't get paid. Ambassador Eric Rubin joins us now with more. He's president of the American Foreign Service Association and is a former ambassador. Ambassador Rubin, given your former experience, tell us, what is the danger to local nationals who worked with the U.S. and remain still in Kyiv?
Well, thank you for that question. And it's really important because our people are facing an unprecedented situation. No one imagined we'd be in a situation where the center of Kyiv could be captured by Russian forces. And so the danger is not clear, but it's certainly there in terms of people who've worked with us, in some cases for three decades or more, being subject to Russian occupation if the center of Kyiv falls, and potentially very much in danger.
Well, the United States doesn't currently have an ambassador to Ukraine. How has that impacted the way that the in-country embassy employees were treated? And does it put the United States at a disadvantage in dealing with a crisis like this?
Well, it's always a disadvantage not to have an ambassador heading an embassy, working with the local government, reporting back to Washington, to the president, to the State Department. In a crisis like this, yes, I think the team we have there, which has now moved to Poland, is very strong and has done a good job, but it's not the same as having an ambassador. And we still don't even have a nominee for the job from the administration.
As I mentioned in your introduction, you are currently the president of the American Foreign Service Association. Tell us, how does something like this happen? And what are people telling you went wrong?
Well, what we're hearing from both our American colleagues who have left Ukraine and from our more than 600 Ukrainian colleagues, our local employees who are still there for the most part, is there was no information when it was decided that the American employees would leave. They left at very short notice. They shut down the embassy. They welded the doors shut. And our local employees did not have information about what to do and where to go, if anywhere. Would they be paid, how they were going to be protected. And that was several weeks ago. And since then, there's been really no opportunity for them to get support, to leave if they wanted to. They could leave on their own, and many of them have, but many have not and are currently sheltering in basements or metro stations with their kids. The pictures are heartbreaking, and a lot of them are very afraid.
We reached out to the State Department for comment, and they said that they are, quote, exploring all legal options to support our team at this difficult time. They also said that the department implemented paid administrative leave and is offering salary advances to local employees. We're also told that special immigrant visas are available, but it's unclear how many staffers would actually qualify. Tell us, given your vast experience, what obligation does the United States government have to their employees? And given that they may be at particular risk because of their association with the United States, how do you respond to what we're hearing from the State Department?
Well, I think these steps are very good, but it's late, and pretty much no one can leave Kyiv now. So if you're in Kyiv, you're stuck there because the city is surrounded. You can't drive out anymore. There are no flights. There are no trains. So any steps that are taken now, in principle, are good, but a lot of it should have been done when it was still possible for our colleagues to leave if they wanted to. And I think quite a number of them did want to, at least to go to Western Ukraine. In terms of legal obligations, there's no obligation in general to help people leave their town or leave their city. But in this case, I think there's a very strong moral obligation on the U.S. government to take care of the people who work for our government, who take big risks for our government, who are loyal to our government. And I think it's an important question because it's not just a question of morality and honor and decency. It's a question of whether anyone will want to work for us again in the future if we show that we're not taking adequate care of our people when they come under fire, when they're in danger.
Ambassador, given how many people who worked with U.S. forces that were left in Afghanistan and this situation that you're describing right now, Are you concerned about the U.S.'s standing and reputation internationally?
Well, again, I think in terms of the question of whether our employees and people who might work for us in the future will trust that we'll take care of them, it's a big problem. This has been a very, very tough year in that regard. Obviously, Afghanistan was a very, very difficult situation, and people were literally under fire. But in this case, there were several weeks before the Russians invaded. And it's very unfortunate that not much was done until now, when it's impossible to leave Kyiv. So I think, yes, I think this is an important thing to fix. I'm glad that the State Department is taking steps now, at least for the future, to help these people. But right now, a lot of them are in basements and metro stations, under shelling, and terrified what will happen if and when the Russian forces come.
Ambassador Eric Rubin, thank you.
Thank you very much.